Mikey, Mike Probosi back in the Money Players podcast. Another week, another Assiniboia Downs pick 4 to go after. Another new guest and fantastic horse player, handicapper, guy that's been doing a lot of work on the free side, the plus side, the inner circle side. So now we're getting for some Assiniboia. Chris Cupples, welcome into my Assiniboia Players podcast.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a first-time Assiniboia player right here.
And that's good though. I like to get new faces and new people involved with Assiniboia because there's so many, I think, positive aspects to it. So I like to introduce new people to it, and somebody like yourself who is very much a veteran horse player, contest player, a guy that's looking at a ton of races every single day. I'm sure that you're familiar that Assiniboia is out there. It's just, one of those things that maybe you need a little exposure to maybe jump into.
Yeah, it just never really fit my schedule and so many other options. And, then when I got to looking at the races, I was pretty surprised at some of the things I seen.
Yeah, and we got Assiniboia Downs. Now this week they're racing on Monday, but it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights. Typically they start at 8:30 Eastern time. And, we're looking late pick fours for these podcasts, and the pools for these late pick fours have been absolutely fantastic. I know that there's a 50,000 guarantee, but the last couple weeks, these pick four pools, Chris, have been approaching almost 200,000 for the late pick fours, that dollar minimum, but big pots. And I know for you like the higher minimums, and, big pools like that might have to raise your eyebrow.
Yeah, it was something like that. And after I did the work, at first I was thinking, I'm going to do the work. Let's see if I play a ticket. When I got done, I was pretty excited about playing a ticket for multiple increment. So
we're going to jump in to Assiniboia pick four for Tuesday. This is June 24th. And again, 9:50 Eastern. They have 7 races at Assiniboia on Tuesday. And it's 6 furlongs. This is 2 lifers, Chris. And these horses, a lot of them have spent a fair amount of time at the 2 life level. Somebody's going to get out of it in this race. So how are we going to kick the pick 4 off?
Well, I think you have to use the 2 coming in from Lone Star. Just kind of has a class edge. But I would be a little skeptical that I'm definitely going to use. But the horse that really caught my attention was the 7 Thirsty Baby. They ran this one last year as a 3-year-old in some stakes. Tried Allowance Company a couple times. Then when they went to claimers, they skipped the non-2 and tried it in a non-3 claimer. Then dropped onto the 5 level. Came back this year, ran it twice, protected for the waiver. And, now it's fit, got an outside post. I like that one. It just kind of caught my attention. I think the distance will help.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with the 7. I do think that one plays well and is a must use. And Wendy Anderson Barn, you can see she has 6 wins from 59 starts so far this meet, but plenty of shares. Her horses typically come out live. And I do think that the third back, this one has a lot of positives and would be a use for me. I've been trying to get No Magic down the past couple weeks. I had it, 2 back, and really he just got away way too far back and ended up 5th. Got a check. Now that was a 10-pound bug riding in there. But last time got a different jockey, got a different distance, took some money in that spot and raced pretty well. Lost to Smack Over Lime in there, who was bet in that race. And that one certainly took advantage of that condition there. But, this is a little bit of a drop here. Drops from 75 to 5,000. I think the 6 furlongs will be fine for this horse. Has some speed. Now, I think needs to get out early again and kind of set the tone. There's some other cheaper speed types in here, but I do think that this one probably has a good chance to get down in this race. I looked at the 2, and, we were talking offline, and Jerry Gourneau is back at Assiniboia, and, he had left the track last year. Now, he'd been the leading trainer for several meets at Assiniboia Downs. He went to Texas. He's now back here with his typical owner, and usually his horses are very live. But, this horse hasn't been seen since May 30th at Lone Star. Shows up here, no works, maybe needs a race. They claimed for 15 back in March, and now they're in for 5. So this would be one that I'd be trying to fade, I think, in this spot. And watch the board. If this horse shows up as 1 to 9, well, then you might have to pivot. You might have to realize, okay, maybe that they know something that this horse is going to get down. But I'd be 4-7. I could see a little 6 also. That would be a backup for me. This one ships up pretty west from Fawner, was racing in Nebraska. Now you get a trainer change, fresh gelding. It's a 2-life spot. This horse has shown speed in the past. I don't know. I mean, it's a 2-life race. So, and sometimes you get some prices at Assiniboia. Pretty tough race, I thought, to kick off the pick 4 on Tuesday.
Yeah, I could see the 6. And then, I texted you beforehand. I have these crazy notes in Formulator from as far back as 2019. And the 6 was working with Mercante back when he was in the Mott's barn back in 23. And Mercante ran second on Derby Day and then come back and won a little stakes at Churchill. Just kind of an odd one you see in there. I was surprised when I seen that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that the people that are familiar with you would know, Chris, that you do tons of homework. I mean, your notes are extremely extensive for the circuits that you follow, but you keep track of these horses in Formulator and things like that pop up, and then these horses show up maybe at other racetracks, and you have these little notes in there. But, talk a little bit about, your process and some of the things that you do whenever you're doing the work for these races.
Well, as it's a pretty standard process as far as, I'm looking at the pace but I do a lot of trip handicapping. I make my own figures. I keep extensive trip notes in Formulator, and then anything odd like work notes, especially, your younger horses, I'm putting all kind of work notes in there that obviously like Parade to West here, they stay in there forever unless you delete them. I keep track of off turf scratches, any kind of information that'll be helpful down the road.
And so when other people, to see this is the kind of work that Chris does whenever he's handicapping, he has extensive notes on all these horses. So, it's nice to be able to remember those sorts of things whenever you're looking at horses, because they might pop up somewhere else and you might not see them for a while. Chris has that information in there to access. So that shows you the level of horse player that he is and the amount of work that he does for these horses, as it goes on all his circuits, all his notes, and that turns him into a winning player. So just something to think about whenever you're looking at playing and, you're handicapping, make your own notes, develop your own process so you can just, have a better idea of what these horses are doing, how they're working. And I do think that is very helpful whenever you're handicapping and these horses show back up. Well, we're going to go to race number 5, and this is the second leg of the pick 4 for Tuesday night. And this is a nice condition allowance race here, Chris. 6 furlongs and nice big 7-horse field. Some really nice horses in here. Horses like Totalizer, Mr. K, a lot of Verb. I do think that you might have to use a couple to get out of this race. I thought the 2, the 3, maybe use the 5 as a B type in here. What say you?
I thought the 5 was without a question the horse to beat. But if the 7 runs in here, they faced each other before, and the 7 was inside of the 5. The 7 is going to be outside and could create some problems for the 5. It was a little faster. But top pick wise, I really like the 2 horse. The 2 shipped in. They tried for 5 furlongs at this level. He came wide, made a good run. Then he was much best in the 9-3, 5.5. Now you're stepping up in class. But when I'm looking at, I cut my teeth in Indiana dealing with the Indiana bred claimers. When I'm looking at horses this level, the eye test is huge for me, and I usually lean there over class. So I would be 2 and 5.
Agree on the 2. That's my top pick also. And, maybe the 5 furlongs was too short. That was a tough race too. Corridor came back to beat some really nice horses out of that race. And, Totalizer was in there. And he, got a pretty decent ride on May 28th to win in that spot, and then stepped up again and faced horses like Judo. We're going to see that horse a little bit later. This horse is racing very well. Now you get a jockey switch, though. The 10-pound bug shows up on the 1 in this race, and this horse comes back, and you get Knights, who's a journeyman rider, very, very sharp, 20% at the meet. So this horse plays well. I do think, though, that the 2, should be able to get the jump on that one. And the 3, Mr. K, is another one I want to use here. This horse is third back, closed up last time versus a horse called Freeze. This horse doesn't take a ton of money, but is always around it. And, I know it was over 2 years. I really don't like those kind of horses, but I do think maybe could get a trip in this race. Has the class, has been facing similar horses the whole time. He's never really been cheapened. So I do think that this horse plays pretty well. It's just lacks a win over the track, maybe more of an underneath type, but if things go his way, he could beat these horses. So I like 2, I like 3, and of course the 5 is pretty obvious on paper. Jump to race 6 and 5,500 claimers, Chris. 7.5 furlongs. That's 2 turns at Assiniboia Downs. What say you here?
I'm pretty boring here. If Joe's had enough, runs back his last race, these horses are going to be screaming they've had enough of Joe and want him to move somewhere else. He just was totally dominant last time.
Yeah, I mean, this one, I agree, was raced very well, but was claimed in that spot. And now shows up for a new barn here. I do think this is a tough race. These 55 claimers here are you get a lot of horses in here that really move around a lot. You can see the 1 was claimed last time. The 2 shows up for Jerry Gourneau here. The 3 was, the 4 was claimed last time. The 5 was claimed last time. So you have a lot of different horses with new outfits in this race. And while the 4 did gallop last time, he's even money in the book. I do think that he's going to play lower in the pick 4. And if you can beat him, you can get a lot of equity. I'm going to try the 1, Charming Charlie. It's Lee Delarande, who claimed this horse last time. Now, faced Joe Had Enough, was 7-1 in that race. And it was just even off the pace. I like the prior line 2 back May 28th. Just got beat a half a length. Now was favored in that spot. Might need to be a little bit faster to beat these horses, but he's another one that showed speed, is kind of always around it. I think belongs at the level, different barn here. So I'm interested in that one. The 2, Shamayam, 4-1 morning line. This is Jerry Gourneau, shows up here. Better race last time against, was second to Joe's Had Enough. So was 26-1. Won't be anywhere close to that in here. You get the top jock now that rides. I do think that there's some value with that one in here. And then for a shot here, I do think the 3 Blue Sky Jade is one that interests me. Drops from 75 back to 55. Whitehall sticks here. Did win 2 back May 28th versus 5,500s. It's another horse that, does like the racetrack. I do think it's a little sneaky in here. Likes to win 14 for 70 lifetime. So any horse that likes to win like that, it does interest me for sure. And I do think that, at 8-1 morning line, this horse gets a little bit of a stretch out. Probably needs a trip, but I'm interested in that one also. So 1, 2, 3. I certainly understand the 4 in the race, especially coming off that nice win. But, if this horse regresses a little bit to some of those prior numbers, especially some of those Tampa lines, I don't know. I mean, even money there, I would try to take a shot maybe other places in race number 6.
Yeah, and I can see it. But I will say, like, my Tampa numbers on those 5,000, not one in a year races, my numbers are a lot higher than your industry numbers.
Okay. And we've talked about these Tampa horses before, and some of them kind of come out of Tampa and they improve. A horse, they're a good example, like a Silver Slugger that raced over the weekend, ended up winning at Monmouth, but went to New York and it sort of improved. But some horses, it's hard to get a gauge on that Tampa form, I think, sometimes.
Definitely, a Silver Slugger has been one of very few that have left Tampa with these big numbers and then repeated them.
Yeah, so this one's interesting, showing up and got a nice win last time at Assiniboia. So Chris is going to lean on that one heavy, race number 6 on Tuesday. Let's go to the last, race 7, and we have a $50,000 stake here, the Free Press, 6 furlongs. Really nice group of horses here. You got 10 horses signed up. Chris, I would think the 10 Sasa D is going to be the favorite coming out of a really nice win on June 3rd. What do you like here? How are we going to get paid?
Well, I definitely want to use the 10. I know, but getting beat 2 1/4 by the Chosen Brawn just kind of leaps off the page at you. I know that's pretty impressive. Something I did not expect to see when I looked at this card. The 1 Judo draws the rail for the 3rd time in a row while looking for his 3rd win in a row. That horse has just put a couple gritty performances out there. My top pick, I'm going to give you another crazy formulator note here. And this is not the reason I picked this horse, but the 3 Upstriker was pre-entered in the 2020 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Dirt. Obviously, they decided not to go or something happened to him. That's not the reason I'm picking this horse. I'm just picking him because I think he's just better. I know if you look back at his class, and I clicked the wrong button, of course, and closed everything. He gets here to Assiniboia running a couple 5 furlong races and just kind of grinding out and gaining on them each time and stayed on. He's going to get a little extra ground today, and I think he's just better than these.
Yeah, I think he's interesting also. He definitely fits. He's made 342,000, so 8 lifetime wins. Now he's 7 years old now, but you might be right too. Those 5 furlong races might not be necessarily his cup of tea as far as the distance. Now you get 6 here. That certainly will suit him. He's third time over the racetrack here out of those 2 second place finishes. The barn is hot, 13-4-33 so far, almost 40% at the meet right now. And I agree. I think this horse plays very well. And I think Judo plays very well also, especially from that inside post. He's going to, I think he's going to get sort of a pocket trip here because, Sasadi really likes to fly early. Was bet to sub even money there. That was a really nice race on May 13th. That was early in the meet. This horse was a big favorite. And then you look last time they went in a stake and this horse ended up 5-1. I mean, that was a great price if you kept the faith on Sasadi. But outside post now, certainly going to, this is the best bunch of horses you're going to see up at Assiniboia. These are really hard knockers. They sort of chase these mid-level stakes all season long. And there's other speed in there. So I'm interested in Judo. I'm interested in Upstriker. I'm going to try to upset Sasadi to finish up this late pick 4. Well, Chris, I know that this is your, native, virgin voyage into Assiniboia, but you could pick a horse anywhere. I'm very, very confident in that. And you said you liked the sequence. So welcome to Assiniboia on Tuesday nights.
Yeah, it's been fun. And, dipping into these cheaper claimers that have went elsewhere. And that's where I kind of started at. So it was kind of a blast from the past for me.
Well, always good to have you and talk to you, Chris. I know you're doing tons of work for the network. We get you all over the place, especially on Inner Circle. You do a lot of great work on there, giving out nice pick 4s and pick 5s on the plus side. So appreciate having you. And, maybe we'll get you back towards the end of the meet for some more Assiniboia.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
This has been a production of In the Money Media. Jump into Assiniboia Tuesday nights. Lots of other shows this week. PTF recaps Royal Ascot. We have Indiana Downs show this week. I think Nick and Jackson are doing that. Some shows later in the week for those Churchill races. Great Stephen Foster card on Saturday. So check out the YouTube channel. Check out the audio side. We'll